Well, after being informed that the emergency room at Southern Inyo Hospital in Lone Pine has been closed until further notice, Inyo County Sheriff's Department did want to provide public awareness of current emergency medical services in Southern Inyo County, including communities of Independence, Lone Pine, Olancha, Keeler, Darwin, and Pearsonville. Now, a press release from the Inyo County Sheriff's Office notes that there are still services available in Southern Inyo. You should call 911 for ambulance response. All ambulance services are operational in Southern Inyo County. Northern Inyo Hospital in Bishop and Ridgecrest Regional Hospital in Ridgecrest. Now, the Inyo County Sheriff's Office is requesting that you share this information with your neighbors, family, and friends. Well, Deb Murphy filed this story. More than a month ago, Southern Inyo residents donated the funds to keep their hospital afloat when it was learned the $13,000 necessary for licensing Southern Inyo Hospital wasn't in the checking account. At last Thursday night's standing room only special board meeting, they stepped up again following the closure of the emergency room for lack of payment to the contract physicians. Now, this time the community demanded action, forcing the issue of a meeting between no more than 2 Southern Inyo Hospital board members, community members, and representatives from Ridgecrest Regional Hospital's board and administration. Now, Mike Patterson from Sierra Life Flight and fire chiefs from Olancha, Lone Pine, and Independence were at the meeting to assure residents emergency transportation would still be available. Now, in what he described as a short-term fix, Patterson said a crew would be based in Lone Pine. The air ambulance would remain in Bishop, but on alert to head south if the need arose. Now, the arrangement is on a day-to-day basis, but Patterson said the company was here to help. Now, speaking for the other chiefs, Lone Pine's Leroy Critt said all of the ambulance providers would continue to answer 911 calls and get you somewhere. One of the issues facing local fire districts is the absence of the more extensively trained paramedics. Now, the district's EMTs can only provide specific procedures, none of which include piercing the skin. Now, following last Monday evening's board meeting, Chief Executive and Financial Officer Lee Barron filed the necessary documents with the state, notification that the skilled nursing facility and emergency room would close. The closures can be rescinded, but without ER doctors, the skilled nursing facility and the rural health clinic cannot legally operate. The hospital only had enough funds to either pay the employees, who will still be 4 weeks in arrears, or the $65,000 payment to Coast Healthcare Services. The board voted to pay the employees. Lee Barron was still scrambling Tuesday to get enough money to keep the ER doctors on board, but could not meet the December 2nd deadline. Thursday's 2-hour meeting exposed the serious financial and morale issues Southern Inyo Hospital faces. November collections totaled $405,000 with $2.2 million still in accounts receivable. Now, as of October, accounts payables totaled $2.5 million. Billing denials from Healthcare Resource Group have clogged reimbursements. Barron said, quote, "A lot has been resolved," end quote. Now, property and parcel tax payments will be dispersed by the county sometime this month or in early January. Employees are not notified when they're not being paid, and complaints have been filed with the Labor Board. The full story by Deb Murphy is on our website, sierrawave.net. Well, there was a plane crash last week at Mammoth Yosemite Airport. The good news, just minor injuries. Press release from the Mammoth Lakes Police Department notes that last Thursday at approximately 12:35 p.m., Mammoth Lakes Police Department received a call reporting an airplane down at the Mammoth Yosemite Airport. Mammoth Lakes Police Department, along with Mammoth Lakes Fire Department, Long Valley Fire Department, Mono County Sheriffs, as well as airport personnel, responded to the scene. Now, that press release states that a Piper Mirage attempted to take off from the runway with winds estimated at approximately 35 knots. On board was the pilot, Gerald Blank and his passenger Lawrence Gallego, both of San Diego. Pilot sustained minor injuries when the aircraft hit the ground and plowed through the segmented circle at midfield. The FAA and NTSB have been notified of this accident and will be conducting their investigations into the crash. Mammoth Yosemite Airport reopened a couple hours later last Thursday at about 2:30 p.m. Well, the burn permit suspension in San Bernardino, Inyo, Mono, that's the BDU unit of CAL FIRE, that was lifted today, which will affect state responsibility areas within San Bernardino, Inyo, and Mono counties. CAL FIRE press release notes the residential pile burning of forest residue by landowners is a crucial tool in reducing fire hazards, and state, federal, and local land management and fire agencies will also be using the same window of opportunity to conduct prescribed burns aimed at improving forest health on private and public lands. More information on burning available at the CAL FIRE website, fire.ca.gov. And the Eastern Sierra lost one of its great residents last week. Deb Murphy filed this story. Bob Tanner lived a glorious, enviable life. He was a packer, an author, a founder of Bishop's Mule Days, a football coach, the face and voice for pack stations when the lifestyle was threatened by government regulation, and the driving force behind the vision of a mule museum in Bishop. Bob Tanner died December 3rd. Like many Eastern Sierra residents, Bob was drawn back to the place of family vacations from his home in Southern California, working his way through college as a packer in the backcountry, learning the craft. After college and a stint in the Navy and during the Korean War, he came back permanently. In 1953, Bob Tanner went to work for Archie Mann at Reds Meadow Pack Station. 7 years later, he bought the operation and spent the next 5 decades sharing the Eastern Sierra with tourists, celebrities, and politicians. Bob learned the best mules came from the southeast, crosses between giraffes and donkeys. He learned the art of shoeing, how to tie knots, how to feed both his employees and his stock, and he learned every inch of the 175 square miles of wilderness in Yosemite National Park and the John Muir Wilderness that was part of his Reds Meadows permit. In 1969, Bob Tanner and Leo Potterfield had a conversation about some of the memorable moments of life as a packer and what a good show that would be. Now, that winter saw record snowfall, leaving the trails in the backcountry snow-covered until August and hobbling the pack stations. The solution to the industry's grave cash flow was Tanner's vision of a raucous mule show. Mule Days, a celebration of all things mules and a sneak peek at what packers and their mules have to deal with. The Memorial Day weekend event became one of the premier mule shows, drawing talented mules from all over the country. But Bob Tanner wasn't one to rest on his laurels when Mule Days got bogged down with show classes that only an enthusiastic equestrian could appreciate. Tanner shook things up, turning the clock back to the original intent: fun. When lawsuits threatened to regulate the packers into oblivion, it was Tanner who spoke to the media, speaking simply about the heritage and value of an industry that took visitors deep into the beauty of the Sierra. Bob Tanner didn't stop with Mule Days. His next vision was the American Mule Museum, a work in progress that started with seed money from the federal government. When the project funding was used as an example of government pork on CNN in 2007, Tanner wasn't discouraged, telling Sierra Wave, quote, "We made Mule Day something, we can make this thing something," end quote. Bob Tanner will be missed, but he left enough of himself behind for both locals and visitors to the Sierra to remember and enjoy. Left a son, Bobby, with the ability to handle the famous 20 mule team. Also left his mark on Mule Days and the countless volunteers and participants over the past 45 years, as well as the 1957 Bishop Broncos football team that claimed the CIF Division Championship, and again, the inevitable American Mule Museum. We will pass along services information when received for Bob Tanner.